What is the biggest hurdle in education?
So when you talk about the biggest hurdle in education, I don't know that there's a biggest hurdle. I know that there's a whole bunch of hurdles, but I don't know about the biggest one. I mean, you're looking at things like accessibility, systemic racism, microaggressions. It's just a lot of stuff. Funding, qualified personnel. There's so many hurdles in education that I don't know if we'll ever be able to resolve them all, especially the more deeper ones, the ones that I think are very impactful, and that has a lot to do with educators' perceptions of children who come to them.
What comes to my mind is we have great parents, and we have all type of parents. I just think the support for parents, maybe more parenting classes, maybe bringing parents in more. It's kind of tough because a lot of meetings and things tend to happen during the day when many of our parents are working. So if there was some way we could be flexible and even require parents to come in, let's talk about what's going on at the school, what's needed. Keeping the parents engaged and focused on the agenda of the school and us working together, because I always say it's like a triangle. If one of those points, 3 points, is missing, the parent, the child, or the teacher, then the child won't be successful.
Because that takes digging deep within yourself and understanding who you are and what your biases are and so forth towards kids. And so I've always found that to be a big hurdle, especially when it comes to Black children. I always felt like Black kids would many times get the short end of the stick in situations. They are the students who are most prejudged to me.
The biggest hurdle in education is policies. It's for sure, it's policies. It's something that we fight all the time and continue to fight for. And, I'll just leave it at that. Like, policy is by far the biggest challenge that we face as a whole.
I think that the biggest hurdle is belief. It is belief all the way around. What does the teacher believe about the young people sitting before them? What does the young person believe about him or herself? What does society believe about this? What do the parents believe about what they're capable of? It's belief. Because I believe, and this is not my theory, it's a theory of a man named Dr. Reuben Feuerstein, who says belief is generated by a need. And the need is to see the improvement of the quality of life of your fellow human. If you believe that they need to have opportunity, you teach them differently. You speak to them differently. You resource them differently when you believe that they have the potential. So I think it's belief all the way around. If we can influence that, anything's possible.
I've also noticed people don't really see education as like an actual profession. Like, this is a profession just as a lawyer or a doctor, and because people don't hold it in that same light, they have a low regard for it, and that does like have detrimental impacts on education as a whole. Because if the people are not taking it seriously, how can we reinforce these things that we're supposed to be doing for our communities? It's very hard to convince a scholar to take their education seriously when they get on the ground, where they hear the adults around them talk about how terrible education is and you can't do anything with it. Why go to college? Why do this? And it's like, no, like, you definitely need to be educated. And that's not to say like it only happens within the building. Education goes beyond just the school building. But it is a place where you can connect with other people and learn from them and learn different ways of thinking and approaching situations. And so I think we got to get back to really putting a a higher regard or having a higher regard for education.
Another hurdle I can think of is definitely the pay.
Yes.
When you talk about paying teachers what they're worth, they do not get paid enough, especially in the K through 12 area. And so when you lack resources and when you lack the certain amount of money to pay the teachers that's doing all those work, you can have an outcome like teachers quitting, or you can have the outcome of your whole program failing because you don't have those resources. So I think that's another hurdle that I see in education.
I think where I am right now in education, I'm looking at it from the perspective of an administrator. And I think about really one of my most rewarding positions was principal, even with my hardest one as well. But I think even at that level, my biggest hurdle was knowing what I needed to do for my students, for my school, and not being able to do it. Having limitations, whether it be lack of funding, whether it be not being able to make decisions about evaluations of teachers that I felt were not up to par, and having the ability to move them along if I felt that. And I will say, not that you can't, but just the hurdles. We're talking about hurdles. The hurdles you go through to get what you know you need.
I'm gonna add one. Unethical administrators. Unethical administrators have been the biggest challenge, particularly in higher education. So for example, the CSU claims that we are in a budget deficit. Why did 7 presidents just get a raise this week? And faculty are still struggling to be able to just make it to work, right? Like, I have to pay for a parking pass to go to work that doesn't want to pay me. And yet, we have to drop classes, we have to drop programs, we have to drop whole institutions. How are y'all voting for yourselves to get raises? Unethical administrators, man, they will be the death of education.
To me at least, and I had to learn very quickly, the culture of academia, being a college professor, is totally different than 99% of jobs out there. There are certain norms, certain expectations, certain ways you're expected to behave, act, and engage with your colleagues. And if you don't do that, especially if you're one of the first in your family to do it, like I am, where again, I'm not a first generation college student, but I am a first generation academic. Dealing with that experience and not knowing a lot of people that have done it, especially in a non-HBCU setting, was a crash course and very interesting to say the least. But again, it's just like navigating that hidden curriculum, which is a term that you often hear people use now to describe some of the hidden dynamics, not just in higher education, but other jobs as well, which was the most difficult part for me. The work itself was, relatively speaking, not that hard, but figuring out how to navigate that was one of the biggest hurdles I faced. And just to be absolutely real here right now, it almost got me pushed out of the profession at a point in time.
So much more of that.
I know.
Right? Okay. Have you experienced? Anyway, let's get to it. Have you experienced anti-blackness more from diverse schools or majority Black schools?
It's an interesting question that I appreciate, because anti-blackness is global, and I didn't really understand how global anti-blackness was until I started working in spaces where the demographics weren't predominantly Black, or if there was like an even split. And so sometimes as I'm thinking about this question, it's challenging to gauge, because even within the Black community, there's anti-blackness doctrine that we've accepted, whether it be consciously or unconsciously. And so even in the way that, I've witnessed my scholars in predominantly Black schools treat each other, or talk about each other, talk about themselves, like the narratives are rooted in anti-blackness.
But anti-blackness, it happens in subtle ways, all over, right? I have seen it where, programs that were very specific for African American students are now sort of diluted. And now it's no longer the African American student it's now the multicultural, so you get this, and it's subtle. Like I said, it's not just like, well, we don't want that, but it's diluted. Yeah. And so I see that happen a lot.
But then you go to other spaces that are more diverse, and these messages that they're receiving about, Black people, the Black community, they're also very anti-Black. And so it's like, there's a larger narrative that people have chosen to accept, and if they're not educated enough to see where it's coming from, or don't have the experience to have been in those communities to actually see what's true, then they just accept it as being facts. And so I would say I've experienced probably about an equal amount of anti-Blackness in both predominantly Black settings and in diverse settings.
When I got to grad school at Cal State Dominguez Hills, I was a student support specialist for the Black Resource Center. And in that center, it's a safe space for Black college students, basically. So they come in, they can do their work, we have programs, all of that, right? And so throughout my time as a student support specialist there, funding was such a big issue. Like, there's been times where the college would. There's been times where we seen that that resource center could end up being, no longer. So there's been times where I had to train students to talk and be in front of those important people on those college campuses when we're talking about sustaining the space. And a lot of times that I saw and that my students saw was, now it wasn't because I guess it was because they just didn't see like the purpose or the need to have this resource center, which clearly is purposeful, because right down the street you have like I forget what it's called, but I'm just going to call it like the Latino Resource Center. But that center was like fully running, no problems at all, but this center had all the problems.
That's a toss-up. That is a toss-up. So I started my educational journey in Catholic schools because my mom wanted us to go to Catholic school for the better education quality, which, cool, I did get some of that. However, I also faced a lot of that early firsthand racism there. I mean, the teachers the teachers and the parents actually called the police on me at one point because they swore that I was going to bring like a bomb or something to the school, right? When really I just wanted their kids to stop bullying me, right? Anytime you bring that type of a threat though, right? Like that turns into something else. But the Black kids too, right? Even Black faculty and Black administrators sometimes, especially being light-skinned, I'm constantly having to just be hyper aware of my existence. And hyper aware of my Blackness. Like, I could pass if I really wanted to, but why would I want to do that? Like, Black is beautiful, right? So I should be able to love that too. But some of those really deep wounds that we have, where, especially stemming from like plantation enslavement, right? This, light-skinned people think that they're better. Light-skinned people had it better, this, that, and the other. No. We have to do some major healing in regards to that. So I have definitely experienced it in both regards.
I'll tell you this, from the time I entered elementary school, there was a huge aura of anti-Blackness. As a matter of fact, for myself, me and some of my siblings, we pretty much helped to integrate an all-white school in New Orleans. And there was a lot of anti-Blackness. Straight up, we don't want you here. Lots of, N-bombs being dropped. adults who made it clear that they did not want us there at the school. And even once I transferred to a second school that was predominantly Caucasian, it was a lot better in terms of seeing more Black faces and by way of students, but a lot of it was still that sentiment of, not wanting you here.
I've experienced it in both regards, only because I think social media is really driving that when it comes to self-image. They all want to look like this picture. They all want their hair to be long, eyelashes to be long. They don't want to be, natural. I grew up in the natural era. Afros was cool. But these days, I've seen children that were dark skinned, but because of the makeup, they look light, right? So they're just trying to continue to paint this picture that don't exist.
When I was an undergraduate student in 1986, we had to protest to make Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday a national holiday. It was a national holiday. That's when Stevie Wonder wrote "Happy Birthday to You." Remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. So it was a national holiday, but the university refused to recognize it. So we had to organize the students and storm the president's office to make them acknowledge that this was a holiday that we did not want to go to class. Black teachers didn't want to go to work, like all of that. So by policy, anti-blackness, right? And so it was great to feel like I had been a part of something that made a change, because in fact they did acknowledge it. It was pretty cool. And then also at the University of Missouri, when I was at the University of Missouri, I don't know, there was a protest called Concerned Student 1950, where the students at the university at that time, the early 2000s, decided they had been tired of being discriminated against. They also staged a protest, led to a hunger strike, which led to the football team not playing football, which led to the institution changing its policy. It was financial. They didn't change the policy when a student went on a hunger strike. They didn't change the policy when the student said, "Stop calling us the N-word on campus." They changed it when the football team said, "We're not going to play another game until he's removed." So, anti-blackness, undergrad, anti-blackness in graduate school.
I think as an educator, I started my career in an all-Black school. Predominantly Black. There were some Latino children, but it was predominantly a Black school. Very, very different mindset going on there. I mean, when I tell you we had a vibe of love and just belief that our kids could and would succeed, and those who were not on board, we would let them know this is how it's going to be, because the majority of our staff, I would say the majority of the staff at that time, they were Black. And so we were diligent about how our kids were going to succeed. We had it in our minds as Black educators that our kids were going to succeed and nobody was going to stop us from making sure that they did.
At the HBCU level, what I witnessed was, and it's not nirvana, so there's some challenges there, but I saw a love for each other. What I saw was professors who said, "You're going to understand this because you're my student. You will figure out statistics because you're my," okay. I saw students who empowered each other. I saw professors and administrators who were committed to cultivating Black excellence, without question. The issues and the problems, the financial aid office is always a thing, but the truth is that the belief in students was prevalent. It's what you described. It is very clear to see that anti-Blackness exists, and it's also clear to see the counter-narrative to anti-Blackness if we think about the power of HBCUs.
The financial aid situation I think is broad everywhere.
It's universal.
Every
Why?
university.
Why?
Where can a student's potential shine bright? HBCUs or PWIs?
I think there's, and this is speaking from the outside in on the HBCU, there is something about being amongst a community of people that look like you, maybe come from similar backgrounds, and when you're in certain spaces, there's perhaps a certain level of confidence that you have, because you know when you speak, the people that are receiving your message or whatever it is that you're saying, they're going to be able to relate to it. They're going to be able to like directly tap into where you're coming from, which may not be the case when you're at a PWI. Like I said, I attended a PWI. And, you know, there are certain rooms that you're in and conversations that you're having. And because people don't understand where you're coming from when they say it, or they have this like preconceived like belief about where you come from, the conversations are sometimes stifled.
I grew up for part of my life down south. So I had an older sister and then my mother. They both attended HBCUs. So I was always on the campuses of the HBCUs, Dillard University, Southern University, New Orleans. And then also at the time when I lived in New Orleans, I lived around a lot of Black people. I mean, Black pride, yeah, I know what Black pride is. And some people may say, you know, as I was coming up, people would be like, oh, you're like hard into Black. Yeah, I was, because that was my experience. And so for me, I always wanted to go to USC. That was my dream school from the time I was 9. And I was living in New Orleans, and I saw them on television one day, and I asked my dad, he was watching football, but I saw the band, and you know how SC kind of struts when they're marching, and I was like, who are they? And my dad told me, and I was like, I'm going to that school. So I manifested that when I was 9 years old.
I'll give you this example. So I was sitting in the class, and our teacher, our professor, he was talking about like Anglo-Saxons. And so we were like in a small group and we were talking. And so I'm probably the only Black person in this classroom now, thinking about it. But I'm in this group, only Black person. And I literally repeated the exact phrase that he used. I'm like, such and such Anglo-Saxons. And this white girl, like, she paused me. She was like, Anglo? What do you mean Anglo? And I was like, Anglo-Saxon. He just said Anglo-Saxons. And she was like, and I just showed her the word. And she was like, oh, Angelo. And I'm like, that's not what he said. Like, that's not what he said. But it's like the other white people in that group, none of them corrected her. And so it's like, in that moment, there are moments like that at PWI where you feel isolated and you feel alone. And if you're not able to work through those moments, it can put a dim on how comfortable you feel letting your light shine.
People would say, oh, you're not going to go to an HBCU? And I was like, no, I'm going to SC. That's where I've always wanted to go. And I was blessed. The Lord blessed me to be able to go there. And I don't believe that it was by chance that I went there. I think I was destined to go to that school. Did I experience some situations? Yeah, I did, but I also believe that when I was a kid and I was thrusted into those predominantly white situations, that I learned how to roll my way through, work my way through. And so when I went to SC, I was able to navigate successfully through that school. Would I do it again? Yep, I would. I bleed crimson and gold right now, so I don't regret it. Might someone who didn't have the same upbringing that I did, not being able to have that pride and being Black and understanding the Black experience like that, maybe they should go to HBCU so that they may experience that. So, yeah.
But there are people who they really thrive at PWIs, and there's people who really thrive at HBCUs too. And so it really just depends on what your experience is.
I mean, I agree. I think it definitely depends on the person, their situation, their life experiences, and what they want out of life. But I can say, and I say this proudly, the HBCU experience was the best for me. And I'll also add that I think it's the best for a lot of people, and they're not aware of that, which is an unfortunate thing.
Which HBCU did you go to?
I went Alcorn State.
Oh, okay.
You see here on the shirt and everything. And
yes.
I also earned my MBA at Jackson State University.
Awesome.
I did not go to a HBCU, but I feel like at the time in the 80s, at the university, we created our HBCU. We had our Wednesdays on the wall. We had our, we created that. And so, but there were enough of us there to create that smaller group on campus. And so I had an amazing time at a predominantly white institution. And it felt like this brotherhood and sisterhood that we had within it. However, now the numbers are so much lower, they can't create that same grouping. So I would say, just like you're saying, that thinking about the university now, I would encourage a Black student to look at the HBCUs to get that experience, because in that sense of belonging, I have nephews that went to Morehouse and those places, and it's just amazing. And looking at it now, I think that is something to really consider.
All right, I'm going to say in both places, if we're intentional. Remember Dr. Juanita Simmons, who told me, go get your application in for the PhD? Well, that was a PWI. She saw me, she saw something in me, and she pulled it out. I think it's about, when you talk about resource centers that exist, it's about how we capitalize on those opportunities at a PWI, being intentional. And also, I worked at the University of Berkeley recently, University of California at Berkeley, who is committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, even when the national mood is pushing against it. Berkeley refuses to change the brand. And so it's about intentionally taking a stand that says we will not participate in anti-blackness. We're just not going to do it. Okay, and that's in pockets though. There's always going to be some challenge. I just think at an HBCU, it's just more free to simply, it's not even taking a stand, it's a way of life. Yeah. We just believe in each other, we believe in this, we're gonna do the right thing. So I think it can happen in both places.
I think I like to echo the idea that it really is about what you put into your education, right? Like, you can thrive anywhere that you are determined to thrive.
I hate when every year I see on like Twitter or Instagram or somewhere this PWI versus HBCU debate.
Yes.
Of course, I'm going to always vouch for HBCUs because I went there, but students can shine bright anywhere. Like, you're getting an education, and I've met a lot of bright, smart people that went to PWIs that are doing great, and that doesn't make them above me or me above them. Like, we still both got our education, and we're still bright, we're still Black.
I definitely think that HBCUs do have a leg up in supporting particularly minoritized students across the spectrum, right? You'll find more teachers of color there generally. You'll find more cultural inclusion and relevancy there, right? More cultural understanding and acceptance. But those spaces do also come with those issues. So as long as you're not getting into that space and becoming complacent, right? And just accepting things as they are, no matter what comes at you, because as Zora Neale Hurston reminds us, right, all my skin folk ain't my kinfolk. So we have to keep our eyes open as well, right? But no, go where you are most welcome and most valued and most validated. And as a culture, we tend to walk in a room and start scanning anyway to see who's there, because we're trying to find out which corner is safe.
I'm gonna sit over here, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful to have spaces where you don't have to do that, right? So
I agree.
Yeah, go to those spaces and protect them.
How critical is it to have Black representation in education?
Absolutely essential. Matter of fact, so my doctoral research essentially is talking about the way the adjunctification of faculty in higher education nationwide lines up with racism. It's institutional racism, right? The more Black people who have come into higher ed, the more our faculty positions have become part-time adjunct contract positions, right? And it's because all of the research that shows how we are instrumental in all students doing well, all students thriving, right? Across the board. So even now this week, right, we found out that there's a list of degrees that are no longer considered professional, right? Well, those degrees are also a lot of people of color.
Right.
Right? Particularly Black women. Right? Black women have the most conferred associates and bachelor's level degrees, and for other ones are rising right now. So removing that status is an attack on us directly, right? So we are absolutely pivotal, and make no mistake, everyone knows it.
Facts.
Very. Very critical. I don't take my role as an educator lightly, especially knowing that in the United States, at least, there only 2% of educators are Black male. So that's a very small representation, and I think it's very important for us to be in these positions. One, because people just need to be exposed to our perspectives, need to see other examples of us in professional settings outside of what they see constantly displayed on the media or in the media.
I have had many students tell me, mostly non-Black, hey, Dr. Luce, you're my first Black professor I've ever had. Or even more unfortunately, hey, Dr. Luce, you're the first Black teacher I have had since pre-kindergarten. What do they call K4? TK.
Yeah.
And wow, when I hear that, it kind of blows my mind, right? At no point, and they're like, no, not even close. There weren't even Black teachers in my school. And a lot of them lived in not a lot, but many of my students come from minority majority areas. But I think it's an important experience for people to have, not just for Black students, minority students, but also I think more importantly for white students, so they can have positive experiences, positive contact with Black educated, and I hate to say articulate because you know what that implies, Black people, right? Where it's important for them to see that, right? Because for better or worse, they're definitely not seeing it in the media.
No.
They're not going to see it on social media. And if you've been told that a group of people is a certain way your whole life, you need counterexamples of that.
It is everything. I think having representation absolutely matters. When I would see, that Black principal, when I would see, when we had a Black superintendent for a while, that was what? I thought about the fact that this is something that stuck in my head. I was maybe assistant principal at the time, and Barack Obama had just been elected as president. And I passed by a kindergarten class, and they were coloring. It was close to President's Day, and they were coloring their picture, and he was Black. And I just sat there and was just like, oh my God! Every kindergartner, they were coloring, and they had the brown crayon, and it was President. And I thought to myself, these kids for the rest of their lives as kindergarten, they're going to be yeah, the president is brown. It was nothing to them. They were coloring this is what we need.
Very critical. We need to see people that look like us. I mean, it can really be as simple as that, but it's very critical. Growing up and not ever having, just imagine not ever having a Black professor or a Black teacher that looks like you. You're just not going to get that energy, that passion, the care, the connectedness that you would have with a white teacher. It's very powerful. In every a career or a job space, I think it's always important to have folks that look like us, so we can look up to those people and we can see I remember I had a third grade teacher that was he was Black, or she was Black. I think I want to do that too because she looks like me. She was helping me. That's what we want. That's what we want in education. That's what you want in all these different fields. You need folks that look like us to be inspiring and give us the way. So it's very important.
A lot of Blacks are not desirous today to go into education, and we know for obvious reasons. It's not the most lucrative career to go into, and then on top of that, there's just so much that you have to contend with when you go into education. So Blacks are not really rushing to stand in line to become teachers. And the question is, how do you change that? How do you get more, especially Black males, how do you get Black males to want to entertain the thought of becoming an educator?
One of the critical elements of Hope Academy, where I happen to be the executive director of schools, is this focus on industry. We're also grounding our students in Black studies, but it's the idea that you will see students focus on industry, but see people who look like them in the industry. If there's somebody who's creating film, for example, a young person can see themselves creating film, editing film, making music, solving scientific problems, or working in a lab. Because if I can see it, I can become that.
Yep.
If I can imagine it, then I can do it. If I see somebody who looks like me doing something amazing, then I want to lean into that. I have a connection to, I don't know if you've seen, and I'll keep this brief, but Being Eddie, the Eddie Murphy documentary on Netflix.
Yes, I did watch that.
There's a segment that I'm connecting to right now where he talks about the influence of Muhammad Ali. That he said at the same time Muhammad Ali was claiming his greatness, I was watching that, Oprah was watching that, Michael Jordan was watching that, and he said they were the first of I don't know what he called them, but basically all of those amazing people were seeing this amazing man declare his greatness on national television, and they all are superstars. So there's something about seeing it and giving yourself permission to be that.
I know from experience that the school I worked at when I was a teacher, I worked with the gifted program, and many of our kids, many of the Black kids were in the gifted program. The racial dynamics was like 70 African American students to 30 Latino students, and then every year it changed. It just started changing drastically. But within 3-year period, we went from predominantly Black kids being in the gifted program to it dwindling down to like 1 or 2. And by the 3rd year, there was not one kid, although it had changed from 60-40, being that the 40% were now the African American kids, but there was not one kid identified for the gifted program. So myself and another teacher, Black teacher who was responsible for making sure our kids got tested and identified, we went to the bilingual coordinator, who happened to be a non-Black person, and said, surely there must be some kids that are still gifted here at this school. And we literally had to fight really hard to get 10 kids out of the entire school into the gifted program. Had we not been there, those 10 kids would not have gotten a chance to be identified and experience the gifted program. And when we left, I don't think any of the kids, from what I was told, any other Black kids were identified.
Where I'm at right now, it's a predominantly Latino school. And so me being there gives another perspective of, what it is to be a Black person, especially sometimes when I look at the artists and the music that they listen to, that they're tapped into, and what they're trying to emulate. And I'm looking at who they're listening to. I'm like, this is your idea of, for lack of a better term, this is your idea of like what it is to be Black. And so it's like me being in that space counteracts or provides a counter narrative to what they're saying, and I can speak to it. And I had a conversation with one of my scholars recently. They mentioned an artist, and they was like, "You listen to this artist?" And I was like, "I used to, but I'm in a different place in life right now." And the reason I don't listen to the artist as much is because of what they are glorifying and what they are promoting. And in that moment, you can tell he was like kind of processing through what I was saying, but it's like, I was able to just plant a seed. Even if I wasn't able to change his entire mindset about it, a seed has been planted at least.
Michelle King, our first Black superintendent for LAUSD, was very instrumental in creating, wasn't a program, but she was the one that was instrumental in making sure our Black kids were not constantly being recommended for special ed. Any behavior problem, everyone wanted to the teachers wanted to send those kids to special ed and identify them as now they need to be in special ed. Or they were suspended a lot. So Michelle King made sure that the biggest piece that she brought to the table was making sure that they did not get suspended at the alarming rate which our children were being suspended. Without someone there understanding and caring, that would not have changed.
I just recently heard a woman say, I wish I could think of her name. I want to say her name is Jenna something, but she had mentioned that if you, whatever space that you're in, if you don't see the representation, that's because you are supposed to be the representation. And so I don't take it lightly, and it's, like I said, very critical for us to be represented.
Last one. Would you choose education again?
I would definitely choose education again. I really got involved once I said, yes, I'll be a teacher. Yes, I'll bring homework home. Once I got involved, I decided I wanted to make a difference, particularly in Black students' lives. And I was known to work very well with behavior problem students. So the first year as a new teacher, I did well. I had 4 really challenging students, and I did so well with them that the next year they put 10 in my class. And the assistant principal came to me and said, okay, Enix, you did such a good job last year, and we want you to know you kind of have some behavior problems here, but we're going to be here to support you. And those kids taught me a lot, and I went beyond the classroom. I went into their homes. I gave incentives like you can go skating depending on your grades here. You get A's and B's, we get to go skating or mountain climbing. However, those kids knew that I cared, and I thought I was getting into education just to make a difference in their lives, but actually they made a huge difference in my life.
100%. It has been the most fulfilling career I could have ever chosen. I remember when I didn't know what I wanted to major in my sophomore year. I was going to a church. My pastor, shout out to Pastor Leo Barbie, who was trying to help us figure out our pathway. And I was so confused about what I wanted to be. And he said, pray about it, ask the Lord, he will tell you what to do. But once you decide to do it, do the best you can. And when I went to this volunteer session at the local public library, I said, hey, I'm pretty good at that. I think this is what I want to do. I remember sitting in a circle of young people talking about what we wanted to be and committing myself to saying, if I'm going to be a teacher, I'm going to be the best teacher I can be. And I don't know that I'm the best teacher ever or the best teacher in the world, but I've committed myself to learning as much about this craft and influence as much of these little lives as I can. I would choose it over and over and over again.
So if I were to choose again, I think that I would choose education over and over and over and over again. And I cannot even imagine myself doing anything else. Honestly, I'm just so thankful and very grateful that I was afforded the opportunity to be able to be a teacher, right? And to spend my adult life in education.
Yes, I would. And again and again. Only for the simple fact that you can't take education away from anyone. The more you're educated, the better you are for yourself. You continue to grow your mind, expand your brain, and, help others, right? It's always people out there struggling. Sometimes they're afraid to tell you that they're struggling. But if you're educated and you know what to look for, you know how to help, you know how to provide the resources, you know how to provide others with, resources, and continue to educate the community, right? Because, community comes from people, right? So if you are not educating people, this community or this city that we, call home, is going to be a challenge. It's going to be something that, we're not going to live in, right? So education, I would do it again.
Every time. I would choose it every single time. All glory be to God, and the way that, the purpose was aligned for me, it was aligned for me to go through education. And so I can say that education has saved my life in many ways. The things that I've been able to do is because of the advantages and opportunities and access that I've gotten through education, and to be able to to pay it forward, to be able to, see a scholar go from not knowing how to read very well to the time that they leave your school, they're like loving books. It's like these moments are priceless, that I really just truly appreciate. And there's a lot that we can do within the field, and I'm very excited about contributing as much as I can to the field before my time is up, to help further our communities, the people that I come in contact with, and whatever it is that I can do. I really see a lot happening in this space, and so it probably sounds very optimistic, but I just know what this field is capable of, and so I would choose it every time, without question, without doubt. I love this field.
Can I say I witnessed that? And I want to say, I just want to let you know, as a new teacher coming in first year, seeing what you were doing and that whole cadre of teachers, that was like, I looked up and I said, okay, I've got to be just as good. And I would absolutely choose education again. I think that, it's kind of like a marriage. Would you say I do again? I still say I do, right? 30 plus years in, and it has been an amazing career choice. I would absolutely do it again. And I'm so thrilled that I have 3 kids, and I have one who is in their first year of teaching. And I'm so excited. It's like pass the torch. So education, I can't imagine doing anything else. And it's been an amazing career. And I really want to, it's so much has changed, and I'm sad to see that we don't have as many young people going into it and choosing it as a career. But I just want to say, what future person might see this, if you have it in your heart to make a difference, if you have it in your heart that you love your community, you love working hard, you want to see have a rewarding job, think about education.
Yes, I would. I know y'all saw me hesitate behind the camera, but no, I absolutely would. There are a lot of, I'm not gonna say a lot, there's some parts of my job I don't enjoy, but that's the reality with like every job there is out there. There are just some things we don't like about what we do. But overall, I enjoy the freedom and flexibility that being a collegiate professor offers.
So as I started, right, I in my introduction, I had stated that I'm getting ready to leave my current position, right? And it's because I'm choosing education, but in a different way. So out of the years that I've been doing this, I've come to the understanding that first and foremost, it does not have to be done like this. It doesn't have to be done like this. So why don't we start trying to do something different? So I'm going to be building out more community education type of platforms that instead focus on our direct connection to our communities, our direct impact within our locus of control, really bringing us more rooted in ancestral styles of education, just oration and talking, right? Like that's what a lecture is anyway, it's oration. So let's go sit outside next to a river and talk about our history, right? Feel our ancestors' literal presence there with us while we're doing it. Remove the red tape. Do something else. So I would absolutely choose education again, because I know that we have so many ways to educate people that we have not even yet tapped into. And it is our time to start doing that.
It was fun. It was so fun being a teacher. Like, I had a blast. Eventually, it does get tiring as to why I retired at my young age. I did get burnt out, but I really had the best time. And just being that positive influence in children's lives, like that feeling, I love it, right? I also think education for me was really like the base and starting ground for like what I'm doing now and what I'm continuing to doing. Like if I didn't understand like community aspects, if I didn't understand what it's like being well, I'm not gonna say what it's like being single mom because I'm not that, but like just seeing that and being firsthand and like assisting families in, you know, tough situations and like assisting, you know, kids that doesn't have anything, just that lived experience and not understanding that, I think would kind of hinder me in the position that I am now. And I'm just grateful for that opportunity and education to kind of like give me that understanding of where people come from, just being the ear to the streets, if you will say. I'm in community outreach, so I work with the community a lot. I work with, you know, the Mexican community, you know, every community that you can think of. And just if I didn't have that education background, I just think it would be a little harder, but I'm grateful for that because it kind of got me to where I am now.
Awesome, that was great. Thank you, looks great. Great interview. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sweating. Nice to meet you too. Great conversation.
If you want to volunteer in a private school, let me know.
Oh, yes.
Thank you so much. And you guys did great.
Okay. Hope so. Camera stop.
Awesome. You did great.